Well, good morning, everyone. I finally made it back, finally got my equipment all working again, and so it's great to be back with you. I appreciate your patience, and I also appreciate, all of the private emails, the private messages on Facebook saying, where are you? Where are my morning musings? And what have you. I really honestly do that. I do appreciate that. Well, as I promised, we're going to begin a series on the already but the not yet of Scripture. Throughout the entirety of the New Testament, scholars have noticed literally for centuries that the New Testament writers would speak of certain things as if they were present realities. Then they would turn right around and speak of those identical things and say that they were coming at the parousia. By the way, this is absolutely not in any way, shape, form, or fashion a preterist concept, all right? In other words, preterists didn't invent this idea. This has been recognized by people of all stripes, of all eschatological paradigms. But there's something that is incontrovertibly true, which has been basically ignored or distorted by all three of the futurist views. Whereas the New Testament writers speak of these elements, these tenets, if you please, as present realities, and then they turn right around and they speak of them as future coming realities, they almost invariably say that these future coming realities would, number one, be the completion of what had already begun, and number two, these coming future realities were coming very soon. Now, what the futurist eschatologies do very often is they change the nature of the already and the not yet. For instance, in the New Testament, Jesus affirmed that resurrection was something that was beginning. The hour is coming and now is, in which the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of Man and shall live. John 5:24 and following. And then he spoke of the hour is coming, in which all that are in the grave shall come forth. In my recent debate with Steve Gregg, Steve says, well, Jesus's the hour is coming and now is was spiritual resurrection. The hour that is coming is physical. And so there becomes a dichotomization in the already and the not yet. Strangely enough, when it comes to resurrection, that's just about the only element of the already but the not yet that this kind of dichotomization is imposed on the text. And we have a whole lot more to say about that as we go. In the meantime, and this is really only an introduction, here are just a small sampling of the things that the New Testament writers said were present in the first century, but they were waiting for that which they said was already present. Number one, and these are in no particular order, but Paul said Christ had abolished death. 2 Timothy chapter 1. And yet he was waiting for the destruction of the last enemy, death. Paul said they had received the atonement. Yet in Hebrews 9, they were waiting for the consummation of the atonement. Paul said they had been saved, Ephesians 2, but they were looking for Christ to come and to bring salvation. They had received grace, but they were looking for grace that would be brought to them at the day of the Lord, 1 Peter chapter 1. They had been translated into the kingdom, Colossians 1, but they were waiting for the kingdom to come. Christ had sat down at the throne and begun to reign, but they were waiting for Christ to sit on the throne of his glory. Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following. And so from this little small sampling, and again, there are many, many more elements to this that we will go into. But just from this small sampling, you can see that something had begun and they were waiting for the consummation. And this is why Paul would say in Philippians chapter 1, verse 28, that he was confident that the one who had begun a good work in you will complete it at the day of the Lord. See? Something begun, something waiting, consummation, something waiting, perfection. This is a fascinating, fascinating text. And you absolutely do not want to miss this. And I welcome your input. I welcome your comments on this, by the way, as always. Okay, we will look forward to that. We will begin developing that. In the meantime, for all of you who have inquired about the DVDs and the MP3s of my debate with Steve Gregg, I am working hectically on getting those ready so that I can make them available to you. And thank you so much for all of your interest. I will give, in my very next morning musings, I'll give you a little bit of a recap of that debate and give you some insights into some of the things that were said there at the debate. It was a fantastic experience. So that's what we'll do in the next morning musings. Pardon me. I just wanted to let you know that we will be beginning our study of the already but the not yet in the very near future, so you have to stay tuned. We'll see you on the flip side.